Now most players know there are 5 positions of the pentatonic scale, but what's the point in learning them? Well, the number one mistake I see is people thinking that by learning more positions they'll play better solos. But if all you can do is play the same notes at different frets, it doesn't really help. So we need a musical reason to use each position, to understand what each offers that will inspire our playing. So in this video, I've put together a solo that moves through all 5 positions, and I'll talk through what I consider to be the most important musical idea that each shape opens up. As the solo builds, we'll see how each new position gives us extra options like adding blues flavour, double stops and melodic bends. So position 1, and we probably don't need reminding of this, but just in case, we're in the key of A minor, and here it is, up and down, starting at the 5th fret. Now obviously loads of great music's been made using either mostly or just solely this position, but what's the one thing we can take away from it? Well, for me, it's the best position for getting the blues sound. Now one of the classic bluesy licks in this position is this type of thing, where we're barring these 2 notes on the top 2 strings together there at the 5th fret. Now these are chord tones from our A minor chord, so they're going to fit perfectly over the top of it, and then using this bend 7th fret of the G string to lead into those 2 notes. Now we can either play those 2 notes together or play them separately and let them ring out together. Both are classic techniques. And then you can also make full step bends on the high E string there and B string at the 8th fret. So all that combined, you can get quite a lot of blues action. And play licks like that. But now something we'll look at in every position is what I call the primary pentatonic box. Here in the first position, it's 5 and 7 on the D string with 5 and 7 on the G string. These notes are G, A, C and D. And this little 4-note box is really the home base for most rock and blues playing. We find it in each of the 5 pentatonic positions. Now if we look at what this offers us in terms of the blues sound, if we come up to the last note, 7th fret on the G string, if we go up just 1 fret, we get our blue note of E flat, so we could make a little half step bends there at the 7th fret up to that note for a bit of blues flavour, or slide off of it back into our box like that. And then the minor 3rd here, 5th fret on the G string, this C, little microtonal bend is really important there for some extra blues flavour. We get blues licks like that. On to position 2, and this one gives us some really beautiful double stops. You know, that kind of a thing. So let's just remind ourselves of the position 2 pattern, and this time we're starting on the 2nd degree of the scale, this C here at the 10th fret, so it's going to look like this, up and down. In my last video I showed a great way to learn and practice these positions, so do check out the link below if you need to work on the shapes. So then looking at some double stops, and probably the easiest place to start is if we just bar these top 2 strings at the 8th fret, then we can slide up to the 10th and back down again, and we get this really nice bright sound. Then we can do exactly the same on the G and B strings, but this time we can't use the bar because our notes are offset by a fret, so it's going to be 7 on the G with 8 on the B, but same again, slide up 2 frets and back down again, and then we can combine those together for that kind of thing, which is just a really beautiful sound to me. Then a similar concept again, but this time we're going to be using hammer-ons. So let's bar these top 2 strings at the 8th fret again, and then we're going to hammer on only on the B string to the 10th fret and pull off again. That kind of a sound. And then same again on the G and B string, so 7 on the G with 8 on the B, and then we're going to hammer on to 9 and pull off on the G. That sound, then combining those together, we get that kind of a vibe. Now, one thing we can do to make this slightly more melodic again is add in one extra note, which is going to be here, this F at the 10th fret on the G. Now, this is not a pentatonic note, but it comes from the full major or minor scale, and we can just use that to lead down between these two hammer-on double stops. And there I'm just coming back to the root there of the 10th fret on the D string. It's a really nice sound. Then, as mentioned earlier, we're going to be looking for our primary pentatonic box in every position, and here in the second position it's going to be 8 and 10 on the B string with 8 and 10 on the high E. G, A, C, D, those exact same 4 notes as we saw down in the first position, G, A, C, D, only this time an octave higher. So any of those licks we played down here in the first position, we can just move right up here to the second position. And you saw in my solo, I started with these hammer-on double stops type of moves, then a little lick in this primary pentatonic box with ending on those sliding double stops. Now position 3, and let's see how this really opens up our melodic capabilities. So let's remind ourselves of what the shape looks like. So this time we're starting on the 3rd degree, 1, 2, 3. So that's going to be a D, but starting here at the 10th fret, and it's going to look up and down like this. Now, when I talk about getting a more melodic sound, I'm really referring to adding in those extra notes from the full minor scale that are missing from the pentatonic. So in the case of A minor pentatonic, we're missing a B and an F to make up the full A minor scale. So let's just zone in here on the B string where we've got 10 and 13, an A and a C. So we're missing a B in between these notes. So I like to play that here at the 12th and half step bend up to hit that note at the 13th, the C there. And you can immediately hear this is way more melodic than just playing that straight pentatonic. That's kind of what pentatonic sounds like, but with that bend in there, it's much more melodic. Then we're also missing an F from our full A minor scale, and in our pentatonic position 3 we've got this E here at the 12th fret on the high E string, so we can just bend that up a half step to hit this F note that we'd normally get at the 13th fret there. Very melodic again. So really we've got half step bends at the 12th fret, both on the B string and on the high E string there. And you saw in my solo, I started with a lick in this position which encompassed both those bends. Something like that, which is way more melodic than just using the straight pentatonic. Then before we move on, let's just check in on where our primary pentatonic box is in position 3, and it's going to be here. 10 and 12 on the A with 10 and 12 on the D. G, A, C, D. And just like before, we can get all that same content. And you see, throughout my solo, in every position, I'm including at least one lick which uses this primary pentatonic box. Position 4, and this is probably the most used after position 1, and for me it's really great for these big bends like that. So let's just remind ourselves what the full pattern looks like. So we're starting on the 4th degree, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's E, but bringing it up to here at the 12th fret on the low E, and it's going to look like this. Now Now you'll see in most of these positions we're focusing in on the upper strings, and we'll talk about going lower once we get to position 5. But right now here in position 4, our highest note here on the high E string is this G here at the 15th fret. Now this is really useful because we can use this G to make a full step bend up to our root note of A that we normally get at the 17th fret there, but bend up to it. And having this big bend right up to that root note is so useful. Then we can also bend at the 15th fret of the B string, but then if we want we can add in that unbent note at the 15th fret of the high E, for that string on string, more country type sound. Now with this note on the B string we can either play a full bend up or let it come slightly flat for a more bluesy type sound. That kind of a thing. Then together with these bends, the thing that makes this position 4 really great is that our primary pentatonic box is in a really useful place. So it's 12 and 14 on the G with 13 and 15 on the B. G, A, C, D. Now you might think that because we have to skip up a fret when we go from the G to the B strings that this makes it awkward, but it's actually really usable because it gives us a couple of positions where we can play one finger per fret. So if we start with first finger on the G at the 12th fret and then second finger is going to be at the 14th fret, you'll see our middle finger we can use to play the 13th on the B in between. So licks like this, really classic lick there, is really easy to play in this position. Then the second position will start here at the 14th on the G with our second finger, but then first finger plays 13 on the B, third finger plays 15 on the B. That kind of a lick is really, really comfortable in that position. Then lastly, position 5, which is great for taking us lower. So now we're starting on the 5th degree, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a G, and there's a couple of places we can play this position in A minor. Either we can start here at the 15th fret where it looked like this, or we can start down here at the 3rd fret where it will look like that. Now I know I just said this shape's best for going lower, but you'll have seen in my solo I started off using it to go much higher up here. So you saw me targeting this root note A here with the 17th fret on the high E string, but hammering onto it from the G below. But then I made this slight bend up on it. Now you wouldn't normally bend up on a root note like that, and I wouldn't do it over the A minor chord. But you see, once we get towards this B flat here, that B flat really acts as a secondary blue note, and then I came down and played something like that where I'm using that same hammer on double stop idea that we used up here at the 8th fret, but now down at the 3rd fret, and then there again, 2nd fret, another A there, playing that little bend up for an extra bit of bluesy flavour again. Back to what I think is most important about this position 5 and playing down low, you'll see me find our primary pentatonic box on the lowest strings, so G, A, C and D, 3, 5, 3, 5. So like the licks we were playing here in position 1, we can now move down here to position 5. Now we tend to play in position 1 a lot of the time, but these notes on the bottom 2 strings are not that well arranged to play licks with them, but these notes here are great for playing licks. So what a lot of people tend to do is play licks in position 1 and then come down to position 5 when they want to play lower. So now here's the full solo, and watch out for all these techniques and positions in action. So I do hope that was useful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.